With all smiles, I welcome you to another session. Good morning to everyone. How are you doing today? Let's confirm that we are good to go. If you can see my screen and you can hear my voice clearly, I would like you to type in hi in the comment section so that we can get the session started. So, what's happening here in the comment section? All right, I can see Field 2. Good morning, 599. Adele 6A. Good morning. Okaboya. All right. Dennis 925. A carry. Good morning. It's a Friday. Happy Friday to you. All right. So I would probably take this as a confirmation that everything is fine. Visual is okay. Audio quality is good. All right. At this point, I'm so excited with all smiles to welcome you to yet another promising session on the Extra and Speed Live. My name is Sheriff Daramola, and as usual, I will be your anchor for the next 1 hour, where we shall be evaluating the financial market using technical parameters to identify trading opportunities lining up for us today. Well, it's the last trading day of the week. It's a Friday. And as usual, we are going to be rounding off on all the pairs we have been monitoring since the beginning of the week. We are going to be locking in our profits accordingly. I'm getting prepared to get out of the market. And we should also remember that today we are anticipating a major macroeconomic event coming up today, and that is the almighty non-farm payroll, which we are going to be looking forward to, and definitely all participants in the market will be anticipating this event, and we shall be seeing the reflection of this anticipation on the chart as price action. So you can see here in the next 2 hours 30 minutes from now, we have it in non-farm payroll, and consensus are predicting a 200,000 increase in job enrollment against the previous 263,000. So that is a sign of a dovish expectation for the US dollar. So we are going to be looking at what is going to be coming up when the time is ripe. So in that regard, we shall be scaling right back into the chart, where we want to be looking at the our charts to decipher what our next line of action is going to be. Well, as usual, the first commodity we are going to be looking at this morning is the US oil. And on the US oil, we have a choppy scenario that has been going on here in the last 48 hours. During the live session yesterday, we were around this point here. Hold on a second. Let's quickly locate that. Okay, so we were around the $74.60 level here, where we were thinking that price might likely push to the downside if it breaks down the $74 level, though it actually broke down that $74 area. And if you are taking advantage of that move, price action moved over 140 pips move before we started witnessing another buy pressure coming in at that area, which came back to our entry zone, and since then price has continued to find higher lows at this point. So at this point in time, it is very important that we remain patient, considering the recent structure we have here on the 1 hour time frame. And if we look closely into the structure, we can see that price is caught within a channel, a flat channel between the $75 level here. As you can see, that is the resistance point of this channel. And then we have the support level of this channel sitting right around the $73 level, to further emphasize that there is an indecision in this market right now. And we cannot this is likely going to be connected to the anticipation of the NFP, and so we are seeing that participants in this market are stepping aside, waiting for a catalyst which might bring some form of liquidity into the markets to drive price movement. So in this regard, we're going to be remaining patient here and wait out for either a breakout of this channel to give us an opportunity to buy the US oil, or a breakdown of this channel to give us an opportunity to sell the US oil. So at this point, there is nothing for us to do right now. Let's just be on standby to catch that move right above the resistance level, or the move right below the support level of this channel. Before I make a close here on the US oil, I think it's appropriate that we scale up to the daily time frame. Let's quickly have an holistic view of what is really going on here, and let's have a little tending towards a particular direction where we should be having a good sign that price will be going in that direction. So in that regard, we will be scaling up into the daily time frame, and let's see what we have here on the daily time frame. Now, if you remember at the beginning of the week, we were able to identify some structures here on the daily time frame, but one thing I'll be doing right here is to zoom into the last 6 months here, and let's see what has been going on this commodity. So since the month of June last year, we saw that price has consistently found lower lows and lower highs, and as a result of that, we had this bearish trend line figured out after connecting the series of lower highs. However, when we look at what has been happening here since the month of September last year, we saw that price was caught within a little consolidation phase here, where price was we had the resistance level at the $93.50 level and the support area at the $78 area before it was finally broken during the first week of December last month. We saw the breakdown of that channel. Price came back to do a retest of the $80 level, a level which also shares a confluence with that bearish trend line. And since the beginning of this year, we've begun to see a selling pressure pushing price further to the downside at this point. And since Tuesday, when price tested the $73 level, we are beginning to see buy pressure around that area. And one thing about the structure here, let me zoom in so that we can see things more clearly here. So one thing about this structure is that as soon as price tested the $73 level here on Tuesday, we started seeing buy pressure coming in from that structure. And one thing about this level is the fact that we can see that price is still yet to break down the previous low, which is giving us a sign that we might be having a possible bullish momentum coming in at this point. Another thing that could happen here is following this impulsive move to the downside, that is the impulse leg that started this year, breaking down this trend line, breaking down the $78 level. We might be seeing a situation where price will retrace back into a structure here around the $78 level, a level which shares a confluence with that bearish trend line, where we might be seeing a possible incitation of another wave of bearish momentum. And if price breaks out of that structure, we could be looking out for another wave of buy possibility here on the US oil. So at this point in time, we really need to understand what is really going on around the $73 and the $74 level, $73 and the $75 area, in order to decide if price will likely go up, probably in the form of a retracement of the previous impulse leg, or we could be having a trend continuation pattern where price will break down that structure to incite another wave of bearish momentum. So this is what we are going to be looking out for on the lower time frame. So that is why we have this area to look out for. So scaling back down to the 1 hour time frame, we begin to see things more clearly if we relate it with what we have identified on the daily time frame. And what was that we were able to see on the 1 hour time frame? Well, it's very simple. We already have a channel already sitting around this area, that is between the $75 level and the $73 area, where we have been witnessing a consolidation phase around that area. So at this point in time, I have told us that we want to remain patient here, and let's wait out for either a breakout to the upside to give us an opportunity to buy, or a breakdown of the structure to give us an opportunity to sell the US oil. But at this point in time, things are looking a little bit bullish at this point. As you can see here, I have this bullish trend line identified after connecting the series of higher lows here. So it's likely tending towards a bullish momentum, but we need to wait for price to break out that $75 level, giving us a good signal that buyers have come to stay, and at the same time taking out all the sell position that we have here, gain some liquidity, and then look out for buy pressure right around the structure in our lower time frame. Then we could join that rally to the upside. And if we are actually joining that rally to the upside, remember we have identified a TP target sitting somewhere between the $77.30 level and the $79.40 area, where I said we shall be looking for a TP target, and that same area might likely incite another wave of bearish momentum on the US oil. So that is what we are going to be looking forward to here. So at this point, let's remain patient and wait out for either a breakout of the channel or a breakdown of this channel to give us a signal of where price will be going towards at the last day of this day. So thank you very, very much for this. If you have any questions, kindly type it in the comment section, and I will be willing to be of help in that regard. So for the next 10 to 15 seconds, I will be reading through the chat to see if there are any questions whatsoever before we move on to the next option. So let's see what we have here in the comment section. So 796, good morning. Madam, good morning to you. 679, good evening. All right. I don't ST Alex, the audio is so wonderful. Oh, thanks for that compliment. I'm grateful, and thanks for your feedbacks. That's made things more better. Thank you, Steamroller. Good morning to you. And thank you for your feedback too, as well, as we get better along the line. All right, so in the absence of no questions, I guess we are all on the same page here. So the next thing we are going to be doing right now is to scale on into the next option, which is going to be the US tech. And in fact, on the US tech yesterday, we had a good opportunity to join a bearish momentum, as we saw another wave of bearish momentum coming in right around the sell window we identified at the beginning of this week. And remember what I said here yesterday, where we were able to identify a flat channel between the $11,000 area. That is one scenario here. And then we had the support level at the 10,870. And if you remember vividly, I told you that whenever we have a flat channel like this, we either want to remain patient to wait out for either a breakout of that structure to the upside or a breakdown of that structure to give us an opportunity to join either a bullish or bearish momentum. And this is what happened here. We saw the breakdown of the 10,870 level to give us that leverage to join that decline to the downside. And if you had actually joined below the 10,870 at this point, you will currently be running with about 130 pips in profit. And if you are taking advantage of that move, kudos to you for being on standby to catch that move. Well, for me, actually, we were able to join around this area after sighting selling pressure coming in for like 4 good hours around that level. So that was why we joined at that point. But if you are joined here, it's okay. And at this point in time, the next thing we want to be doing right now is to lock in some profit so that we don't get caught up in any sudden pullback that might likely happen at this point. So we have a couple of positions running here on the US tech. We have one here. We have one right below the 10,870. Then we also had the breakdown retest of the 10,800, which gave us another opportunity to add more position to our existing trade. So at this point in time, I will be advising us to place our take profit target somewhere right above the 10,800, as we want to give room for price action to have a little breathing probably in the anticipation of another wave of bearish momentum. And if price takes us out of that position, then we might likely be tending towards a possible bullish momentum coming in at this point. So at this point, please lock in your profit here somewhere right above the 10,800, and let's wait out to see what is going to be our next line of action. And for those who had missed out on these opportunities that we had here in the last 24 hours, well, we are going to be looking at if the market is going to be giving us another chance to join that thick line to the downside. So in this regard, I have identified a structure here at around the 10,740, which we shall be using to guide our trading activities for today. But before I go into the details on how we are going to be trading this for today, I would like us to scale up to the daily time frame. Let's quickly have an holistic view of what's really going on in this market before we come back down here to decide what our next line of action will be. And for the sake of those who are not part of our session at the beginning of the week, this is going to be a very good opportunity for you to be on the same page with us here on the Extreme Speed Live. So right now we are going to be, hold on a second, I want to all right, sorry for that breaking transmission, please. I had to sort out some issues here, which we are good to go now. So let's quickly look at what is happening here on the daily time frame. Well, the first thing we observed at the beginning of the week was the fact that price action has been on a bearish momentum throughout last year, and as a result of that, we were able to connect the series of lower highs here to give us that resultant bearish trend line that you can see on your screen right now, hereby confirming the strength of the sellers throughout last year. But things got a little bit interesting during the month of June last year, where we started seeing buy pressure coming in around the $11,000 level to give sellers some run for their money. So we saw buy pressure come in here, negate all selling pressure. We saw one happen here in the month of June. Then in the month of October, I think the first week of October, we saw another attempt by the buyers to push price to the upside. But one thing we observed was that as soon as price tested 11,700, sellers continue to negate all buy pressure at this point, hereby pushing the demand zone further to the downside to somewhere around the $10,600 level. And what we saw here, and that's the $11,000 level, which has been a strong demand niche for the major part of the second half of last year. It was a very strong demand niche, and as a result of this, we were able to identify that level as a key level which we shall be using to guide trading activities for this year. And if we look at what has been happening here in the last 2 weeks, we saw that as soon as price came into the demand zone at the 10,600, we have been witnessing selling pressure right below the $11,000 level to emphasize that there is some traces of sellers at this point, though we are still sitting right above that demand zone here. So the tendency of a bullish momentum is still very possible at this point. However, if price breaks down that this demand zone, we might be looking out for selling opportunities here. But as long as price remains above the structure, there is a likelihood that we might be having a situation where the price action here might transition into a reversal pattern in the form of a double bottom structure to incite a bullish momentum back into the trend line here, which also shares a confluence with the 11,700. So this is one thing that we also want to put into consideration while we look out for trading opportunities on the US tech. So at this point in time, this is where price is right now, around the 10,700. It is yet to break the previous low here. So we are going to be scaling back down to the lower time frame to identify this level, and then we shall be using it as a yardstick for trading activities for today. So we have the 10,700 around this level. So if at any point in time during the New York session today we have a breakdown of the 10,700, we might likely be looking out for opportunities to sell with a take profit target sitting at the 10,400, which is the limit of that demand zone, to see if we might be having another buy pressure to the upside. And if a further breakdown happens, then we have no choice than to add more position to our existing trade. So at this point in time, let's scale back down to our lower time frame. Let's see what is happening around the 10,700, and let's use that as a yardstick for our trading activities for today. So right back to the 1 hour time frame, what do we have here? So the first thing we are going to be doing on the 1 hour time frame is to first of all identify that 10,700 which we have on the daily time frame here. So the 10,700 sitting somewhere around here. Okay, so that is the point where price tested during the early hours of today, before we started seeing buy pressure coming in. So this is what we have right now. So for those who had missed out on these opportunities we had here, hold on a second, those that missed out on the opportunity we had here and here, well, let's see if price will break down to 10,700, and if it does, then we might be thinking of adding more position to our existing trade. Breakdown retest, we joined the decline to the downside. And remember, at the beginning of the week, we were able to identify our TP target between the 10,670 and the $10,620 level here. And so for those who had positions running since yesterday, well, let's place our TP target around that level. And if we are joining right below the 10,700, we could extend our TP target to somewhere around the 10,500. A further breakdown of the TP target zone, retest of structure in our lower time frame, should be giving us more opportunity to add more position to our existing trade. So that is the view we are going to be having here for selling opportunities on the US tech. Now, the other perspective we also want to be taking into consideration is the fact that buyers could likely come in from this area. And remember that the 10,800 at one point in time, in fact, during the last week of last year, we saw how that level has been holding by pressure. And one thing that we should also take into consideration is the fact that the breakdown here could actually turn out to be a false breakdown, just like it happened here on the last day of last year. We saw a breakdown of that demand zone, and which afterwards price climbed up above that structure. So at this point in time, if you are thinking of buying the US tech, I will suggest that you wait out for price to break above the 10,800, taking out all the sell position that we have here to give us some liquidity to push price to the upside. So if we are going to be buying the US tech, we are not going to be thinking of any other thing below the 10,800. So we are looking forward to price right above the 10,800 to be looking out for buying opportunity on the US tech. So this is what we are going to be looking forward to. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to drop your inquiries right in the comment section as I go on to the next pair. So let's see what we have. So the next pair we are going to be looking at this morning is the GBPUSD. And on GBPUSD, in fact, we are also profitable on the GBPUSD in the last 24 hours here. And let's quickly do a replay of what our expectations was as at yesterday. And then we run through what our expectation would be like for today. So as at yesterday, we were around this point. Hold on a second. Let's quickly look at that. Okay. So we were around the 1.20370 level. We were around this area. And remember, yesterday we were already in a sell position after taking advantage of the breakdown retest of the 1.20450 level prior to yesterday's live session. And one thing I stated here yesterday was that we should move our stop loss to break even, lock in some profit, and let's wait out to see how price action is going to be reacting to the 1.200 level. And what we saw here was quite interesting, as we saw a breakdown retest on our lower time frame of the 1.200 level to give us an opportunity to join that decline to the downside. And remember, we identified the structure also at the 1.195, where I said a breakdown of that structure also should be giving us an opportunity to join that decline to the downside, and a breakdown of the 1.19 also is also another good opportunity to add more position to our existing trade. So on the GBPUSD, since Thursday, we have 1 position, 2 positions, 3 positions, and the 4th position running this morning. So we have 4 positions running presently on the GBPUSD, and for those who have been part of this profitable journey, congratulations to you guys. Kudos to you for being on standby to catch that move when it happened. And in fact, at this point, we want to be locking in some profit here, locking some profit, as we want to be closing the week on a profitable note. So at this point, I will be suggesting that somewhere right above the 1.18850 level should be most appropriate to lock in some profit, and let's wait out to see how price action will continue to play out on the GBPUSD. So since the beginning of the week on the GBPUSD, we have been witnessing selling pressure as the year started at the 1.2100 level. So sellers has continued to find lower lows and lower highs here. And in fact, after price breaking down the 1.20800 level, sellers have continued to have a day here on the GBPUSD. So kudos to everyone on the GBPUSD. We have been profitable so far for this week. If I want to calculate how much profit, how much profit that is, the first one here is around 190 pips in profit. Then the second one here is about 140 pips in profit. Then the third one here about 90 pips. And then the last one we have this morning is about 50 pips in profit. So quite impressive for the week. Congratulations once again. So the next thing we want to be doing right now is to have a plan for today. So what are we going to be doing today? Do we have a structure that we are going to be using to guide our trading activity? Are we still going to hold on to our sell position, or are we going to be anticipating a reversal at any point in time as we anticipate the NFP for today? So let's quickly run through the daily time frame. Let's have an holistic view of what is really going on in this market. Then we scale back down to our lower time frame to decide what our next line of action will be. Now, looking at what we have here on the daily time frame, it is obvious that throughout last year, price action has continued to trend towards the downside. And as a result of this, we were able to connect the series of lower highs here to give us that resultant bearish trend line, which continued to hold sell pressure until it was broken here in the month of November last year. And since then, price has continued to find higher highs. And as a result of this bullish momentum here, we went as far back as the month of September to identify these higher lows. And as a result of this, we had this bullish trend line figured out at this point. As you can see, price action by pressure continued to respect that bullish trend line since September last year. And at the beginning of this year, we saw a little consolidation phase around the 1.200 level, a situation where we said we were at a critical point at the beginning of the week where the possibility of a bullish momentum could happen and the possibility of a bearish momentum could happen at that particular point in time. So we had a huge confluence around this area where we said we're going to be waiting out for either a breakdown of the 1.200 level to join a sell momentum, or the identification of buy pressure above the 1.200 level to give us opportunity to buy. And the later is what happened here. We saw the breakdown of the 1.200 level, and at this point in time, again, we are price action is sitting right on this second bullish trend line that we have here. So at this point, I will be deleting the first bullish trend line here as it is no longer relevant at this point. So we have a new structure, we have a new bullish trend line that we are going to be using to guide our trading activity going forward. So at this point in time, price is sitting right around that bullish trend line, where we're going to remain patient here to see if we are going to be having a situation where price will continue to the downside, or probably price will respect this bullish trend line one more time to incite another wave of bullish momentum. So in that regard, we shall be looking forward to see what is happening around here on our lower time frame to decide what our next line of action will be. So at this point, let's look at what structure that is, and then if we look closely, we have the 1.1900 level, which we shall be using as a yardstick for trading activities for today. So now let's scale down to our lower time frame here and look at the 1.1900 level, and I think we have a messy chart right now. So to make things a little bit cleaner, I would like to delete some illustrations here so that we can have a clean chart. I think this is no longer relevant. I'll delete this bullish trend line. And okay, I think we are good right now. I hope we have a better screen. So now this is the 1.19 level we identified on the daily time frame, and you can see this level has been a major determinant of price action, at least since the beginning of this year. We saw buy pressure coming in here, and we saw attempt by the buyers again to take another buy momentum from this level, but it was met by strong resistance from the sellers, whereby leading to the breakdown of the structure during the early hours of today. So at this point in time, for me here, I will suggest that we remain patient. If there is going to be a possibility of price coming back to do a retest of the 1.1900 level, then we look out for selling pressure on our lower time frame. Then we could actually join that decline to the downside. So at this point in time, our take profit targets will be around the 1.17500 level. Let's see how price action is going to relate to the structure, and if we start seeing buy pressure come in from that level, then we want to be anticipating to buy. And if a breakdown of the 1.17500 level happens, then we have no choice but to think of adding more position to our existing trade on the GBP USD. So at this point in time, for today, we have the 1.190 level, a very strong psychological level considering the round figure of that price to be our yardstick for trading activities for today. So as long as price remain below the 1.19 level, we remain comfortable in our sell position. And for those who had missed out on this opportunity here, I have advised us to remain patient. Let's see if price action will give us an opportunity, which might likely come in the form of a retest of the 1.19 level before another wave of bearish momentum will happen at this point. And if price does not go to as far as the 1.19 level, then we will be scaling down to the lower time frame. Let's see if we are going to be having a trend continuation pattern around the 1.18600 level to decide if we are going to be adding more position to our sell trade. So in this regard, I would like to scale down to the 15 minutes time frame for the sake of those who had missed out on this opportunity, so that we don't miss out on this one if we start seeing trend continuation pattern around the 1.18600 level. So in that regard, I will be scaling down to the 15 minutes time frame where we want to be seeing things more clearly. So on the 15 minutes time frame here, this is what we have here. And for the sake of clarity, let's identify the 1.18600, which we identified on the daily time frame, and that is this level here. So I would like to give this a blue color to differentiate it from the previous structures we been identifying here. So we have the 1.18600 level. I'll also give this a blue color as well. All right, so this is what we have here on the 15 minute time frame. So at this point in time, we begin to see buy pressure coming in around the 1.18600 here on the 15 minutes time frame, and there is a likelihood that this might incite a counter trend into that 1.19 level, which was broken during the early hours of today, to incite another wave of bearish momentum. So let's look out for that scenario to happen. And if price does not go that far to the 1.19 level here, then we might be looking forward to a significant breakdown of the 1.186. Probably price comes back to do a retest on our lower time frame with selling pressure, then we could actually join that decline to the downside, which has a tendency of giving us about 100 pips thereabout if price move as expected. Then in addition to the structure here, I was able to identify lower highs here. So if we take into consideration this connecting the series of lower highs here on the 15 minutes time frame, we also have a good confirmation that will help us and make things a little bit easy for us during the New York session today. So if price comes back into respecting that trend line at any point in time, followed by selling pressure, then we want to be joining that decline to the downside, and a further breakdown of the 1.186 retest of structure should be giving us an opportunity to add more position to our existing trade. So for those who are already in the sell position, we have moved our stop loss accordingly to lock some profit. And one thing we are going to be doing today is to use this trend line to guide our trading activities for today. So so we don't get things mixed up here. So we have two structures. The first one is the bearish trend line here. We use it to guide our selling opportunities on the GBPUSD. Then we have the 1.186 level here to also use to guide our trading activity for today. So that is my view here on the GBPUSD. If you have any questions, feel free to drop your inquiries in the comment section, and I am willing to be of help and shed more light on this current structure we have here on the GBPUSD. Remember, those who are already in this trade since yesterday, kindly move your stop loss, lock in some profit. We don't want to lose whatever we have made so far on this pair as we head into the end of the week. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to read through the chart and see if there are any questions whatsoever before I move on to the next pair here. So let's see what we have here in the comment section. All right, Gorik and wants me to treat the Euro USD. Well, Euro USD is not part of the pairs we have been monitoring since the beginning of the week, though I have it on my watch list. But let's see if there is time. I will be treating it after we review all the pairs we have been monitoring since the beginning of the week. I can see Max in the house. Good morning, Max. I guess this is the first time I'm seeing you this year. Happy New Year to you. And how are you doing? ZMPT, good afternoon from Zambia. Wow, good afternoon to you. How are you doing? I have 260, greetings to you. 202, good morning. Steamroller, okay, thanks for that compliment. Oh, thanks for that compliment, Simula. I'm humbled at your words. Thank you. So 260, good morning. Oh, thanks for that compliment, 260. Humbled. 420, good morning. All right. So in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we are all on the same page on the GBPUSD. And one thing I used to say here is that you can screenshot my screen, munch the screen, and so that you can use it as a reference point whenever you are about to make your own individual decision as we get prepared for the New York session today. So in that regard, let's quickly move on to the next pair. And the next pair we are going to be looking at this morning is my trade for the week, and that is the USDJPY. In fact, the USDJPY has been so kind to us on the extra speed, as we were able to hit our take profit target at the 134.500 during the early hours of today, which gave us over 850 pips in profit. Remember, we rode this bullish momentum right above the 13100 level at the beginning of the week. Right here, we had the first position right above the 1.131.00 level, and then we had a second position at the 132.00 level here, and then we also had another position right here at the breakout of the 132.720, And this morning we had another position at the retest of the 133.400 level to give us over over 850 pips in profit. And for those who had been part of this profitable journey on the USDJPY, kudos to you for being on standby to catch all that move. So let's quickly do a replay of what our expectation was yesterday here on the USDJPY. As during the live session yesterday, we were around this area here, I think somewhere around the 132.400, I guess. Yes, around the 132.450. So this is where we are during the live session yesterday. And one thing we observed here during the live session yesterday was the fact that price was caught within a tight channel between the 132.720 level, which was the resistant level of that channel, and the 132.00 level, which was the support level of that channel. And we had a couple of scenarios that we were expecting here as we saw sell pressure coming at this point. And one thing I stated here is that this bullish trend line will continue to guide our trading activity for the week, and in fact it continued to guide a bullish momentum. Remember, I told you yesterday that if price breaks down that trend line, we might be looking out for selling opportunities that might likely bring price back into the 131 to incite another wave of bullish momentum. And if that does not happen, instead, if a breakout of the 132.720 happens, then that will be a very good signal for us to join that bullish momentum to the upside. And this is exactly what happened here, and that triggered the buy position above the 132.720, and price moved accordingly well in our favor. And during my on my public platform, I was able to share this new structure at the 133.400 level, where I said a retest of that structure should be giving us an opportunity to add more position to our existing trade. And in fact, this is exactly what happened during the early hours of today. We saw price come back to do a retest of that trend line, which also shares a confluence with the 133.400 to give us an opportunity to add more position to our existing trade. And in fact, price moved considerably well, and it our take profit target had a 134.500 level. And at this point in time, we've locked our profit. We've made our profit here on the USDJPY. So we want to sit back and wait out to see how price action is going to be reacting to the 134.500 to decide if we are going to be buying more of the USDJPY, or we going to be getting ready to sell the USDJPY. And remember that we have a macroeconomic event coming up today in the form of the NFP, and this is likely going to be a very good confluence for us to either buy or sell depending on whatever structures we are able to identify around this level. Please hold. I'm sorry for the break in transmission, please. I had to sort out some issues just keep coming up, and I had to sort them out, please. I'm sorry for that. So let's quickly dive into what is happening here. So like I said earlier, the 134.500 is a very key level that we are going to be patient enough to see our price action is going to be reacting to this level for us to either add more position to our buy expectation here on the USDJPY, or get ready to sell the USDJPY as we anticipate the NFP. Now, one thing I want us to see here on the USDJPY is the importance of the 134.500 before we go on to make a decision for today. And in order to give you a clue into how important the 134.500 is, we shall be scaling up to the 4 hours time frame. Remember, we identified the structure here on the 4 hours time frame at the beginning of the week. So this is the 4 hours time frame here, And remember, we had this bearish trend line figured out after connecting the series of lower heights. And in addition to this bearish trend line is these key levels that we were able to identify here. The first one is the 138.00 level, a level which has been a buy niche for participants in this market before it was broken down during the first day of the month of December, and since then price has continued to trade below that level, further emphasizing the strength of the sellers at this point. Now the second structure here is the 134.500 level, which I told you where our TP target was at the beginning of the week, and this is where the 134.500 is. See how this level as at one point in time hold by pressure before we saw the breakdown of the structure here mid-month of December, and we saw the retest here. Selling pressure came in again to do a retest of that structure, and right now we are at that level right now. So this is a very, very important level at this point in time. This is where we took our take profit target on the 1 hour time frame, and right now price is around that level here. And you will agree with me now that we are at a critical point in the market right now, as anything around this area will decide what our next line of action will be. So if a breakout of the structure happens here, we will be looking out for buying opportunities on the USDJPY, and if we start seeing selling pressure here, probably in the form of a reversal pattern, probably a double top structure on our lower time frame, breaking down that bullish trend line that has been guiding bullish momentum since the beginning of this week. Remember, we had this bullish trend line which has been guiding bullish momentum since the beginning of the week. So if we have selling pressure right below the 134.500, breaking down that bullish trend line, then we want to be thinking of selling the USDJPY for today. So these are my views here on the USDJPY. So my advice is that we remain patient here. Look out for structures that will support either a buy position or a sell position. So what are we looking out for buying the USDJPY? We want to be looking out for a breakout of the 134.500 on our lower time frame. Look out for buying pressure above the structure, then we could actually join that rally to the upside. But if we start seeing reversal patterns here, probably your double top structure, your inverse head and shoulder pattern, leading to a further breakdown of that bullish trend line, giving us a sign that this bullish trend line is no longer strong enough to hold bullish momentum, then at this point in time, we want to be getting ready to join that decline to the downside. So these are my views here on the USDJPY. So I will advise us to remain patient, and the only way we can monitor our price action is going to be reacting to this level is to scale down to our 15 minutes time frame or 10 minutes time frame, and let's see what is happening there. So for the sake of this session, let me quickly run through the 15 minutes time frame. Let's see what is happening around there in order to decide if we really don't have any structure at this point in time, though we have the first rejection here. So we are going to be looking forward to price action breaking out of the previous high here to give us an opportunity to buy. So this is what we are going to be looking forward to from this current structure here on the 15 minutes time frame. We want to see price action break out of the previous high here, taking out all the sell position around this area to give us an opportunity to buy the USDJPY. But if price does not break out of the previous structure, that is, if buyers find it difficult to take out the sellers from this level, then we'll have no choice than to look out for selling opportunities, which will likely break down that bullish trend line to incite another wave of bearish momentum at this point. So for the sake of this video and to make things a little bit simpler for us to be able to identify patterns during the New York session, I would like to identify a simple structure here, which I caught insights around the 134.250. I guess that's a good psychological level. So we have the 134.250. Let's label it. So this area will be a platform which we shall be using to guide trading activities for today. So what this simply means is that if price breaks down that 134.250, we might be having a situation where price will continue a sell momentum to the downside, and if we are able to join that bearish momentum to the downside, please note that as soon as price comes in touch touch with this bullish trend line here, kindly move your stop loss to lock in some profit, as we never can tell what will happen as price tests that bullish trend line. So we might likely see bullish momentum that might incite another wave of bullish momentum. And if a breakdown of the structure happens, retest of structure, well, at this point, we want to be thinking of adding more position, and a further breakdown of the 133.400 should be giving us further opportunity to add more position to our existing trade. So that is the scenario we are looking forward to here. And then we have the 134.500 sitting around here. Okay, I think 134.550. Let's 134.550. So that level will be serving as our buy opportunity. So we look out for the breakout of the 134.550 to look out for another buy opportunity on the USDJPY. So it's very simple for us to comprehend. We already have a structure, the channel between the 134.550 and the 134.250. We're going to be using this to trade the USDJPY for today. So breakout of the 134.550 gives us an opportunity to buy, and a breakdown will give us an opportunity to sell the USDJPY for today. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to drop your inquiries in the comment section, and let's see how I can be of help in that regard. So while I move on to the next pair, I will be checking the comment section from time to time to see if there are any questions in that regard. Then the next pair we are going to be looking at is the USDJPY. And in fact, the USDJPY, though we had some profitable situations here on the USDJPY, but it appears price is caught within a choppy scenario right now on the USDJPY. So what do we have here? So during the live session yesterday, this was the scenario we had during the live session yesterday. So we were around the 1,850 level, where we already had a sell position running after the breakdown of the 1,850. Remember, and I told you that for those who had missed out on the opportunity right below the 1,850, we want to be getting ready to add more position at the breakdown of the 1,845, which is a structure we took into consideration during the live session yesterday, and this is exactly what happened. We saw a breakdown of that 1,845, which gave us about 2,000 pips in profit before this bullish momentum began during the later part of the New York session yesterday. So now going into the New York session today, what is going to be our plan on the XAUUSD? Are we going to continue to look forward to selling opportunities here, or we should be thinking of buying the XAUUSD? Well, before I go into that details, let's quickly run through the daily time frame, where we are going to be looking at this chart from an holistic perspective. Let's see what is really going on in this market at this particular point in time. Now, on the daily time frame, remember at the beginning of the week, we were able to identify some simple structures here, which we said we will be using to guide our trading activity for this year. And the very important structure we have here is the 1,800 level, which has been a major determinant of price action throughout last year. And look at what happened during the first half of last year. We saw that 1,800 was serving as a buy accumulation zone before it incited this bullish momentum that started in the month of February, culminating at around the $2,050 level. However, afterwards, price action spiraled back down into that 1,800. We saw another attempt by the buyers to break out of that structure, but the buy momentum around this level here within the month of June wasn't that strong enough, as we saw sellers take over the market, leading back into the final breakdown of the 1,800. And throughout the second half of last year, as soon as price broke down that structure, price has continued to trade below the 1,800 level, further emphasizing the strength of the sellers at this point. And look at what happened during the last month of last year. We saw that as soon as price got back into the 1,800, we saw how price was caught within a huge consolidation phase, emphasizing the indecision in this market, as participants are not sure if the breakout of the 1,800 is actually a false one, or probably we might be having a trend continuation from that level. And look at what happened since the beginning of the year. We saw that we have been witnessing bullish momentum as price continued to climb, find higher highs. However, yesterday we saw this bearish move, and I'm of the opinion that this bearish move might be a retracement of this impulse leg, which price might likely come back into our golden zone area, which could be the 50, between the 50 and the 78.6% of the previous impulse leg, to incite another wave of bullish momentum. That is one expectation we should be looking forward to here. Or we could be looking forward to a breakdown of that bullish trend line, which also shares a confluence with the 1,800 to incite a bearish momentum at this point. So at this point, we need to understand what is really going on around the $1,830 level here to decipher what our next line of action will be. Is this going to be the culmination of the retracement phase to incite another wave of bullish momentum? That is the retracement into the structure to insert another wave of bullish momentum, or we are going to be seeing an outright breakdown of that structure to break down the 1,800 in anticipation of a bearish momentum. So we are going to be looking at the importance of the 1,830 on our lower time frame. So let's scale back to the lower time frame, identify the 1,830, and let's use that as the basis for our trading activity for today. So now back to the 1 hour time frame here. We already have let's see the 1,830, which falls around this level here. I would like to readjust this 1,832 to fit into the 1,830 zone, so we can see we have something around here, and we shall be relabeling this one as the 1,830, which we'll be using to guide our trading activity for today. So this is what we have here right now. And if we look at what has been happening here in the last 18 hours on the XAUUSD, you will notice that though we have this retracement phase, as we saw, by pressure finding higher lows, and as soon as price tested the 1,840 during the early hours of today, we have been witnessing selling pressure from that level. And I think I shared this on my public platform, where I was able to connect the series of higher lows here, and we identify the sell window at the 1,840, stating that if price breaks down this bullish trend line, we are going to be in for selling momentum. So we had a position triggered at around the 1,838. If you are part of this trade, kudos to you for being on standby to catch that move. At this point, I would advise us to move our stop loss to somewhere right above the 1,840, which has been an area where we have been witnessing selling pressure. So at this point, this is what we are going to be looking forward to for today. Since we already had the breakdown of that bullish trend line, I'm looking forward to price coming back into the structure, coming back into this area. Look out for selling pressure on our lower time frame. Then we could join that decline to the downside. And if price breaks down the 1,830, remember that structure we identified on the lower time frame, then probably a retest of structure should incite another opportunity to add more position to our existing trade on the XAUUSD. So remember, we are anticipating the NFP for today, so we don't know how our participant in this market is going to be reacting to that event. So let's keep ourselves, let's have an open mind so that we can be able to take advantage of whatever possibility that comes in during that New York session. So in that regard, we're also going to take into consideration the possibilities that buyer might likely come in at this point in time. And if we are going to be buying the XAUUSD, we want to see price break out of the 1,840, taking out all the sell position around this area to give us a confirmation that buyers have come to stay at this point. And considering the higher lows we have been identifying here since the later part of New York session yesterday, this might likely be a good sign that buyers, if a breakout of the 1,840 happened, we might likely be seeing a bullish momentum going in from that point. Now, if a bullish momentum comes in at this point and price continue to find higher highs and higher lows, then I want us to take into consideration this bearish trend line, which has been holding selling pressure since the beginning of this week. Remember, we were able to connect the series of lower highs here to give us that bearish trend line, and that level also shares a confluence with that $1,850 level, a level which was broken and retested during yesterday's trading session. So if price continues to the upside, and as soon as price gets into both of the structure here, that is the 1,850 and the bearish trend line here, we want to be moving our stop loss to somewhere around the 1,845 level, lock in some profit and wait out to see how price action is going to be reacting to the $1,850 level. So if selling pressure comes in below the structure here and probably break down retest of a reversal pattern, then we want to be seeing this as another opportunity to join that bearish momentum to the downside. Hereby price action has respected that bearish trend line, and that means the bearish trend line is still strong enough to hold selling pressure. That is one scenario we are looking forward to. And if the contrary happens, that is price breaks out both the bearish trend line and the 1,850 level here, a retest of structure followed by buying pressure right above the structure should be giving us an opportunity to add more position to our existing trade here on the XAUUSD. But from my own personal point of view, I'm still of the opinion that selling pressure is still coming in here. So we continue to look out for selling pressure from below the 1,840 or from below the 1,850. Whichever case happens, we want to be on standby to catch that move when it happens. So on this note, I would like to call it a day. But before I do, let's do a recap of what our expectations are on all of the pairs we have been monitoring since the beginning of this week. So the first commodity we looked at this morning was the US oil, and what was our expectation on the US oil? Well, on the US oil, we had a simple flat channel, a $2 channel between the $75 level and the $73 area. We had a channel here. Price has been caught within the consolidation phase around that area, which is a sign that there is an indecision in this market as participants are waiting for a catalyst that will be driving price action, bringing liquidity into the market. And you know, we are looking forward to a macroeconomic event coming up today, the NFP, and we also have the ISM services PMI also coming up in I think 4 hours from now. That's also a high impact event also, so we can see the reflection of this anticipation on the chart as price action, as price has been caught within that consolidation phase between the $75 and the $73 level in the last 48 hours. So what we are doing right now is to remain patient and wait out for either a breakout of this channel to give us an opportunity to buy, or a breakdown of this channel to give us an opportunity to sell the US oil for today. So that is my scenario here on the US oil. Then we went on to talk about the US tech, where we have been in a sell position since yesterday, and currently we are running with over, I think from this position we have about 200 pips in profit, and for those who took it right below the 10,870, we have about 150 pips in profit, and for those who are taking it below the 10,800, we have about 90 pips in profit at this point. And one thing I stated here is that we should be moving our stop loss accordingly to lock in some profit, and at this point I will be readjusting it to around the 10,800. Let's lock in some profit around that area, and let's wait out to see how price action will be reacting to the current structure between the 10,740 and the 10,700 level to decide what our next line of action will be. And for those who had missed out on this opportunity, I stated that let's wait out and see if price will break down the 10,700. Selling pressure on our lower time frame below the structure should be giving us an opportunity to join that decline to the downside. And if you're already in this trade, it's an opportunity to add more position to our existing trade. So that is that on the US tech. Then we went on to talk about the GBPUSD, where we are also in profit on this one, as we have joined this bearish momentum right below the 1.20450 yesterday morning. We also had another one at the breakdown of the 1.200 level. We also had another one at the breakdown of the 1.195, and we had another one this morning at the 1.1900 level. So we are quite profitable on the GBPUSD for this week. So the next thing we did was to lock in some profit here, and we have identified somewhere above the 1.18900 level as an area that we want to be locking in some profit at this point, in order to not lose out on any of the profit we have made, just in case price action moves against us at this point. Now, for those who had missed out on this opportunity, we were able to identify a simple setup on the 15-minute time frame. If you remember vividly, we had the simple setup here on the 15 minutes time frame where we had two structures here. The first one is this bearish trend line we identified after connecting the series of lower highs here. So we had this bearish trend line figured out. So this bearish trend line will continue to guide our bearish momentum. And in addition to this bearish trend line is the 1.18600 level, which, as you can see here, has been holding by pressure for quite some time now. And in fact, I would like to adjust this level to the 1.18500, which is more or less a significant psychological level. I will suggest the 1.18500. Please readjust whatever structure you have marked out on your charts in this regard. So we have the 1.18500, and the reason why that is simply because look at what has been happening here in the last 6 to 7 hours. We have been witnessing buy pressure coming from that level. So what we want to see here is either price breaks down the 1.18500 followed by selling pressure on our lower time frame, then we want to be joining that decline to the downside here. And there is another possibility that price might likely come back to do a retest of this bearish trend line to incite another wave, or probably come into the 1.19 level to incite another wave of bearish momentum. So we want to get ourselves prepared for either of these possibilities to happen so that we can get ourselves ready. So what this simply means is that if the buy pressure here continues, let's see how price reacts to this level. If we see selling pressure here, then we can join the decline. But if a breakout of the trend line happens and price continues to the upside, we look out for selling pressure here to join that decline to the downside. But if none of that happens and instead we cite a breakdown of the 1.185, then we have no choice than to get ready to join that decline to the downside. So that is my view here on the GBP USD. Then we went on to talk about the USDJPY, which I said this is the trade for the week for us here on the Extreme Speed Live. As you can see, since the beginning of the week, we have been part of this bullish momentum right above the 131.00 level, and we had multiple entries. We had another one at the 132, we had the 132.720, we also had another one at the 133.400, which gave us about over 850 pips in profit on this one. And for those who have been part of this successful trading journey, congratulations to you guys for being on standby to catch this opportunity. So at this point in time, we already have our TP target hit at the 134.500, and like I said, we are at a critical point in this market, as I was able to show you how important the 134.500 level is on the 4 hours time frame. As you can see, this level at one point in time was holding by pressure. You can see the same thing happened here mid-December last year before we saw the breakdown of the structure during the later part of December last year. And since the breakdown, we have been witnessing selling pressure right below the 134.500. And as you can see right now, price is currently around the 134.500. So at this point in time, I have advised us to remain patient as we want to be waiting out for confirmations to either buy if we cite a breakout of the 134.500 on our lower time frame, retest of structure, then we could join a potential rally to the upside. And if instead we start seeing selling pressure below this level, breaking down this bullish trend line that has been holding by pressure since the beginning of the week, then the breakdown of that trend line is a sign that the trend line is no longer strong enough to hold by pressure. Then we want to be getting ready to join that decline to the downside. So that is the view we have here on the USDJPY. And to make things a little bit easy for us to be able to take advantage of any trading opportunity here, we were able to scale down to the lower time frame, where I was able to identify a simple setup that we can use to guide our trading activities during the New York session today. And what is that? Well, we have a resistance point sitting at the 134.550. As you can see, we have been witnessing selling pressure here, and then we have the support level at the 134.250 level. So what I said here is that we already have a peak here at the 134.550. If price is unable to break the previous high here and instead it breaks below the 134.250 level, selling pressure below the structure in our lower time frame should be giving us an opportunity to sell the USDJPY. And in fact, if price continues to the downside, breaks down that bullish trend line, which has been holding bullish momentum since the beginning of this week, then we want to continue to look out for further opportunities to add more position to our existing trade on the USD JPY sell position. However, if at any point during the New York session today we cite a breakout of the 134.550, taking out all the sell position within this area, then at this point we want to be seeing that breakout as a good signal that buyers have come to stay, and we join the rally to the upside. Remember, we have a macroeconomic event coming up today, and whatever result comes in from the macroeconomic event, from this current structure here, we are going to be experiencing a huge spike. So we want to be getting ready to join that big move when it happens. So that is that on the USDJPY. Then we went on to close the day on the XAUUSD, and on the XAUUSD we have been part of a good profitable journey here, as we were able to ride this move to the downside, which gave us from the 1,850 price moved up over 2,500 pips from that first position below the 1,850, and the second position below the 1,845 price moved about 2,000 pips before we started witnessing that buy momentum that we see here in the last 16 to 18 hours here. And as a result of this higher lows we saw here, I was able to identify this bullish trend line, which I will be calling a temporary one at this point in time, considering the fact that we are on a long-term bearish momentum. And as you can see here, this bullish momentum culminated at the 1,840. As you can see, as soon as price got into the 1,840, we have been witnessing selling pressure around that area, and this has led to the breakdown of that bullish trend line to signal that there is a tendency that sellers are still very present in this market. And whenever we have a breakdown of a structure like this, we expect that one point in time price is likely going to come back, do a retest of structure to incite another wave of bearish momentum. And like I told you on the daily time frame, we were able to identify the 1,830 level, which I said a further breakdown of that structure should be giving us an opportunity to add more position to our existing trade here. So we continue to look out for selling pressure if price continues to climb to the downside on the XAUUSD here. Now, for those who are thinking of buying the XAUUSD, though I'm not inclining that we buy the XAUUSD at this point, but if structure says so, we have no choice than to listen to the structure. So what we are going to be looking forward to buy the XAUUSD is if price breaks out of the 1,840, taking out all the sell position right around this area, getting some liquidity, which might result into some buying pressure around this area on our lower time frame, then we could get ready to buy the XAUUSD. Then there is a catch here that we need to take into consideration, and the fact is that as soon as price gets into the structures, we want to be moving our stop loss accordingly to lock in some profit, as we never can tell how price action might react to that level. Remember, we're on a bearish momentum, and we could actually see sell momentum coming anytime from the structure. So as soon as price gets into the 1,845, move your stop loss accordingly to break even, lock in some profit, and if price continue to climb to the upside here, remember we had this bearish trend line figured out at the second day of this week. We saw this bearish trend line. So if you can look at this structure here, you can see that the bearish trend line also shares a confluence with the 1,850, a level which at one point in time had some selling pressure there. So if price gets into the structure, we move our stop loss to somewhere around the 1,845 and wait out to see how price action reacts to the 1,850. So if selling pressure comes in below the 1,850, then I think at that point in time, we want to be getting ready to sell the XAUUSD. But if a breakout happens, retest of structure, then it's a good opportunity to buy the XAUUSD. So at this point, we have two areas we are looking for sell position here. The first one is below the 1,840. If we continue to see sell pressure below that structure, and if a breakout of that structure happened, we continue to look out for sell pressure right below the $1,850 level. So this is my views here, and we were able to look at all these pairs we monitored since the beginning of the week: the USOil, the US Tech, GBPUSD, USDJPY, and the XAUUSD. And in fact, it has been a profitable week for us on the on this community, and congratulations to everyone who has been part of this profitable journey. And on this note, I want to wish you best of luck during the New York session today as we get ourselves prepared. And remember, we do not want to get too excited at the sight of a signal which might likely come in the form of a breakout or a breakdown of a structure. Once we sight a breakout of a structure like this, the next thing we want to be doing is to scale down to a lower time frame. Look out for retest of structure that supports the direction of the breakout or the breakdown. Then we can now join that decline or rally, whichever case it may be. So on this note, I wish you best of luck during the New York session today, and I look forward to seeing you same time on Monday, 10 a.m. UTC, 11 a.m. West African time, and let's come here again to analyze, review the financial market, and get ourselves prepared for this week, for the next week. On this note, I wish you best of luck today, and do have a merry and happy weekend. Bye-bye.